Welcome, Veritas family. Thank you so much for joining us here at Give and Take. I'm Sherry Davis, and I am joined today by Dr. Cameron Cloud. Hi, Dr. Cloud. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing well. We're so glad to have you today. If you are watching this live or in replay, be sure to tell us where you're watching from. We would love to hear from you. Dr. Cloud, as you know, with our guests, we have everybody tell us what their Veritas origin story is. So tell us how you became part of the Veritas family.
Well, was pastoring in Virginia some years ago, and was aware of Veritas. Had been to some of the events, and had friends that worked there, and had attended there. I happened to be in class with Dr. Daniel Stevens,
Hmm.
and we struck up a friendship. And then, as I finished my degree, and he called me and said, "Hey, let's get together and let's talk about some possibilities." So it was really through Dr. Stevens that I was connected more fully there. And again, already had some connection through friendships with people that were on faculty and in the church there.
Sure.
So it was just a natural connection when it was Virginia Baptist College
Yep.
um, to
So
come
how
and be a
long has
part.
that been for you? How long ago? Do you remember?
I believe it's was August of 2013. So this year will be 13 years if I'm correct.
Okay, well, that's exciting. That's a nice long legacy. I didn't realize how
Yes,
long. Yeah, very
yes.
nice. And tell the viewers, because I forgot to mention this, where you are right now.
I am in Dunn, North Carolina. I pastor the Central Baptist Church here in Dunn, and I've been here for about the past almost 7 years.
Okay, very good. So if you are in the Dunn area, I know we have lots and lots of Veritas folks in North Carolina. So if you're
Mhm.
anywhere near, pop over. I know he'd love to see you and meet you, especially if you've been in his classes. Just come over and see. I know that he'd enjoy that. So, um, Dr. Cloud, what did you have prepared for your Ministry Matters today? We like to encourage our community with some advice or what's on your heart.
Well, for me, it's the centrality of prayer to all kinds of ministry, and this is whether it's bivocational, co-vocational, or whether it's full time, whether it's pastoring or whatever it is. If you're a student, it's just that everything that we do in the work of the ministry is to be centered with prayer. And I feel like at times when we say prayer, that's such a common thing. We know that's the Christian thing to do, and we're
Yeah.
supposed to do it. But for example, when I'm preparing a sermon, I pray before, I pray during my preparation, I pray after it, I pray before. It's just all of it. I love what Oswald Chambers said in My Utmost for His Highest, talking about the verse where Jesus says, "The works that I do, greater works will you do." He said, prayer is not preparation for those greater works. Prayer is the greater work.
Hmm.
And so just the thought of that, I remember reading, I believe it was James Frazier, who was a missionary in China, and he said the great impact, great revival. He was almost ready to quit, and then people started getting saved in an entire valley where he was ministering. People
Hmm.
started coming to Christ, and he saw that breakthrough. And he said it wasn't just because of the work here; it was because of the work of prayer back in England. And so the
Hmm.
fact that we can labor with one another and our ministry. So I would just encourage. There's a lot of good tips and things to do in ministry, but I think, especially if you go through the Book of Acts, it's just continually. When they made a decision, they were in prayer. When they were before Pentecost, they were in prayer. Everything when they were persecuted, they immediately gathered the church to prayer. And so
Hmm.
I think that's what I really um, feel like is the center of that. And it has to be prayer that I can get started on this and just go for it. We just finished up Pray 28, which every January is our church's prayer emphasis month. And we just finished that up. And so it's on my heart about this. But the
Okay.
idea of I grew up thinking that prayer had to look a certain way and sound a certain way. You had to pray with a
Sure.
certain fervency in your voice, and
Yes.
you had to
Yeah.
say the right words. And I'm learning and hope to continue to learn that it has to be what's in my heart, I think Shakespeare got it right in Hamlet when he said, words without faults never to heaven go. And
Oh,
don't often
interesting.
get my theology from Shakespeare, but I think it's a very good word that sometimes
Yeah.
we're saying words and we might say them with fervency and we might be energetic about it, but fervent prayer is a heart that's fervent. So that's my ministry matters that I would just encourage everyone about.
It's really good that your point. Real quick, Leo from Romania is on. Hi, Leo. Thanks for popping in today. Alyssa watching from here in Virginia. Thanks, Alyssa, for popping on. I think you're exactly right. We grow up thinking that prayer is one thing or has to sound a certain way, or those you hear pray publicly are very eloquent, and ours are, you pale in comparison to some of those. And then you really just when you mature, you realize it's just a conversation with the Lord. It's
Yeah.
just a friendship, a sweet relationship with the Lord. And it would be like how you would be talking to anybody you have sweet friendship with.
Right.
And so I appreciate your bringing up the idea that it doesn't have to look or sound like that. But tell me what you have found to be a couple of strategies when it comes to prayer, nuts and bolts, nitty gritty. Do you keep a notepad? Do you keep a list? Do you certain times of day? What is what have you found works for you?
Well, I have found that a couple of things that are just practical that help me. I do find finding a place with minimal distractions. I'm going to be honest,
Yes,
mentally and just attention wise, a phone is just it. It's just a constant pull. Even if you're not seeing it, you're sort of thinking about it. We've
that's
gotten
right.
addicted to them, and so those kind of trying to find a an unplugged place to be for that morning time.
Hmm.
And that I find that helpful. And I do have some lists that I pray over. I have some lists from our church, and I have lists from friends in ministry and missionaries and those kind of things. So I find that a plan for prayer, and I don't use the same plan every day, but I find that a plan works. And as one fellow said one time, he said, you don't, you say my plans, you don't like my plan. Well, what's your plan? And if you don't have one, mine's still better than yours.
That's
So
right.
having some structure, one that I'm doing some writing about and working on is based on the tabernacle, the
Okay.
approach to God, and how each step along the way that helps my mind stay sort of focused from distractions. Some people use the ACTS, ACTS, adoration, confession, thanksgiving, supplication, but having something that helps me sort of have a structure to my prayer. Now I pray extemporaneously in that,
Sure.
but it helps me. And then when I get to the supplication part or the intercession part, then I have my list and that helps. So having that little bit of structure, it
Yeah.
leaves some flexibility, keeps it natural, but
Good.
it also helps me stay focused in prayer.
I am the same as far as being easily distracted. Even as I'm getting older, it is more and more evident that any little thing can just pull me right out of it. And the phone is the biggest culprit, of course. And so I have, on occasion, brought a notebook with me to take down notes of things that pop into my head, where it's legitimate tasks that need to be done. And it could even be derived, it could even be given to me by the Lord, like as I'm in prayer and it's like, oh, don't forget to
Yeah,
reach out to this person or whatever. But I'm the type of person that I almost always have to take care of that thing, or I'm afraid I'm going to forget it. Well, if I do that, 6, 7, 8 times in a row, I'm never actually focusing on prayer. And so I'll take a notebook and have
oh,
those
that's
so that I
great.
don't forget that later. One other thing I have found as well, I'm not as diligent with this, but it has helped me. If you are moving, there's actual moving, your brain is free, it's more free to think about those things. If I walk on the treadmill slowly, right? Not for the purpose of exercise, but just the purpose of movement, I
Yeah,
find that I can focus a little bit longer, a little bit more diligently at that. And
yeah,
I need to do that more diligently, but it is a really interesting phenomenon because sometimes I will close my eyes and sometimes I won't. But one time I had closed my eyes and I looked up and time had passed. Where
yes.
normally, you're distracted, you're kind of on your phone, you see the time as it's ticking away. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I found that similar. I like to get out and walk, and I do it for physical reasons. I do it for mental reasons. It helps clear my mind. But I also use that time very often for my prayer time.
Mm,
And I
good.
agree. And I don't close my eyes when I'm walking outside.
Sure,
That's not a safe thing to do.
sure.
But I do find that the time goes by more quickly,
Yeah,
and the physical activity allows me to, I don't know, I feel like I focus more, and it keeps me on track. So yeah, I love that that
yeah.
adds helps the time to go by quickly, or you end up praying. And I'm also find that physical activity helps me to think of remembering things. People have asked me to pray for them.
Yeah.
And we know we do that Christian thing of, oh yeah, I'm praying for you.
Yeah.
And if we
Yeah.
don't do it immediately, we tend to forget. So a lot of
That's
times
right.
God will bring people to my mind as I'm walking. So that's a great aspect.
That's something else. That's a strategy that I have been able to use. I have a task app that I keep that will allow me to it'll remind me at certain times, and I will, oftentimes plug somebody's name in for a week later or something and say, reach out to so and so praying for their dad or praying for
Mm,
whatever their situation is. Because while you're exactly right in that if we don't pray for it right then, it becomes trite,
yeah.
praying for you, but I think it is such a encouraging thing when you reach out to somebody off of the urgency of the prayer. Like they've reached out and they say, pray for me, my mom is sick, or whatever the situation is. If you set a note to reach out to them a week later, a couple of days later, how much that means to them. And
Yes.
then, it allows you to have that interaction with somebody maybe you're trying to develop a mentorship relationship with, or you're trying to include some surrounding family, within your church. Maybe you have a church member, but you're trying to really reach some of the outside family. And I find that strategy is very helpful as well. And at first, when I was starting to do that, it felt mechanical. It felt,
Mhm.
well, this isn't genuine. But then I thought, you know what? It's a strategy, it's an
Yes.
initiative that I can use in this busy day in time because I do care and I do want to
Yes.
reach out, but I'll never remember. I just never
Right.
will remember it. So that's
Yeah.
something that's been helpful.
Well, and that just real quick, that's what circles back to the centrality of it in ministry. You can get so busy in the busyness of ministry, and I'm talking about good things. I'm not talking about the distractions of social media or
Yeah,
television or the news, just the distractions of life. So if you don't have that strategy, and you're right, at first it will feel a little odd if you haven't done it, but
yeah.
having a plan for prayer, having notes for prayer, having reminders, all
Mhm.
of those things help you to be purposeful in it and make sure that you do it, because the old saying in leadership is a failure to plan, to fail to plan is to plan to fail.
That's
And
right.
to fail to plan to pray is to fail to pray.
That's right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's really good. And it does feel, um, you know, especially when you're younger and you think prayer is, you know, God giving me everything I'm asking for, when really it's his way to change our desires to
Yeah.
his. And it takes the maturity and experience and trust and um seeing these things actually come to fruition where you actually start to believe that, to really know that prayer is designed for this relationship. And as that relationship deepens, then your desires begin to be more like his. And before you know it, it's a really remarkable thing.
Right. Yeah, it certainly is. And I would say this too about ministry, and this sort of flows with some of my thinking of my advice or my tip that you mentioned. Um, and that is that we treat prayer too often about the result,
Yeah.
um, instead of about this is about me deepening my relationship with God.
Mhm.
I read a great quote recently. I'll paraphrase this, and I've sort of adapted it into thinking. So I'm sort of, this is not an exact quote, it's my processing of that. That prayer is not, a passion for prayer is not about it. It's not about prayer, it's about Him. It's
Mm.
about a passion for God. And a lot of people think, oh, I won't go to a prayer service, I won't go to a prayer meeting, I won't do prayer because I don't really enjoy prayer. I don't really have a passion. There's these prayer warriors over here who have this great passion for prayer and praying high, who prays all night and wears the grooves on the floor. And that's not me. It's
Yeah.
not really about that. It's any Christian who has a passion to know God.
Right.
That's what prayer is about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And it is such a probably one of the more highly overlooked disciplines because
Yeah,
it's easy not to get in that
yeah, it
rhythm.
is.
You know, it's
Certainly
easily
is.
overlooked. And really, I think I forget who said it just recently, was talking about like don't bother doing any of the other disciplines if you haven't committed to the prayer. It's almost like that's what lights it up. That's what gives it its importance, you know.
Yeah, certainly.
Anriel is watching from Kentucky. Thanks, Anne Marie, for
Hey,
popping in today. We've got a couple of questions we like to ask our guests, so we're going to dive in here. What leadership principle do you return to again and again? What one comes up very frequently as you are leading the people in your influence?
um, well, actually, I think it starts with a definition of leadership. And I know there's every book I've read on leadership gives about a dozen, and then the author gives theirs. But the
Sure.
one that I like is from a book that I use in one of my classes, Spiritual Leadership by Henry and Richard Blackaby.
Yeah.
And the definition that I go to, which sort of is the thought, is that true spiritual leadership is taking people from where they are and helping them move to where God wants them to be.
Good.
And that's a very simple definition, but that definition really sort of is the key truth and principle that I keep going back to. A lot of times in ministry, it's easy to start to define ministry success differently.
Mhm.
And it's about are we meeting budget? Are we keeping the people in the seats? Are we
Right.
building buildings? Do we have a vision? And I'm not against any of those things.
Of course.
That's not the definition of success. Are we moving people from where they are to where God wants them to be? Are we moving lost people to
Mhm.
salvation and working? Are we taking new believers and helping them move to maturity? Are we taking them and moving them to true discipleship and places of service and
Yeah.
equipping them for the ministry? So that spiritual process. So that's the truth for spiritual leadership that I always go back to, and I have to remind myself of that occasionally. And I would say the same to our, the students and anyone that's watching, is just really that's our task. It is spiritual Spiritual success is doing God's work, God's way, in God's time, by God's power, for God's glory.
Mm.
And if you take God out of any of that and put my in it, then you've not had success. And we can define success a lot of ways. So
Yeah.
that definition of spiritual leadership is a good grounding for me. And that's a principle that I just go to again and again, moving people from where they are to where God wants them to be.
You know, that's such a good encouragement, especially to those who are pastoring what would be somewhat little churches, where, sometimes the pastor can look at another church and think, boy, there's no way I'm measuring up, or there's a comparison situation. But sometimes these churches are spiritually deep and mature and complex and rich. And it's because that pastor has invested so well in those people that they are far more spiritually successful,
Yeah.
than what we would consider. No,
Yeah,
that's really good.
absolutely. And that's true whether it's a pastor of a large church, a small church, or whether it's just, a person serving in their church and you got five people in your Sunday school class, and your leadership matters in that class,
That's
or
right.
you're trying to help move them to where God wants them to be, or even something like serving in the nursery, in the preschool. So
Right.
how are we leading in this? Well, you're helping lay a foundation for
That's
them
right.
to move to where God wants them to be. So
That's right.
it's true for everybody.
It all has a purpose. Yeah. And
Yes.
when it's really helpful for the leaders to help develop the love for that purpose for the workers, so that they don't get burnt out or they see it as just an exercise and one more thing they have to put on their plate. If you can actually see it as I am investing in the lives of these five kids in my classroom where I can help them develop a love for ministry, develop a love for the scriptures, develop a love for coming to church and being with church people, then that's a great and high and holy purpose.
It is. It is. And I would
So
say that
Andrea, Real quick,
Oh, go
Anne
ahead.
says, I love Blackaby spiritual leadership books. So much to glean from those pages. Yeah, I think we might put
Yes.
the link in there. If you're still on, if you would put the link in there for anybody who wants to catch that later. I think that is a requirement for most grad level and up classes. And I read through it and it is rich. It is
Yeah.
lots of good stuff in there.
Yeah. It along with Oswald Sanders' spiritual leadership, same name, different book.
Okay.
Those two are ones that I really I have those in my is it eight DM 810, I think is the number. I may be off on the number of that, but ministry leadership. Those are two of the required books, and I find them so helpful.
Good. Now, you have a class that's coming up. Is it Module B?
I have one in summer A and two in summer B.
Summer A. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your Summer A class. I should have put this at the top of the hour. I forgot about that, but I do
Okay.
remember you had a class coming up. So talk about Summer A.
The class in summer A is DM 710. It's ethics, biblical ethics in ministry,
Okay.
and it's a very well. I start off the first part of the class deals with basic ethics, sort of get an understanding of different views and approaches to ethics.
Hmm.
Establishes a biblical ethic. How do we build that from, and then gets into practical things of ministry. And I think it's one of those things that we often think about ethics of being money, business, and those kind
Sure.
of things. But I think it gets down to, especially in our day, how do we use AI in an
Good.
ethical way? It can be used in a way that is really stealing,
Mm, sure.
or it can be used in a valid way, and just sort of processing a lot of those very practical things that we may come to different conclusions on individually, but we cannot avoid thinking through them biblically.
Is this class required or an elective in the DMin program?
I should know that. I believe it's I
Okay.
believe it's required in the DMin. I believe it's
Okay,
one of
got
the
it.
core courses. Yes.
Okay, very good. So you will likely have, if you are a DMin student out there watching this, you will likely have this course in your program. Tell us about the assignments for the class. What can a student expect to read? What are the assignments that you're going to be having
Yeah.
them?
Yeah. They'll read a couple of books on ministry ethics. This is not, we do address again some of the sort of general ethic principles, but this focuses in on ministry ethics. And so that will be some of the reading assignments. There's a book that deals with different case studies of ethics. And it's actually a book that I have asked them to watch for things they don't agree with.
Okay,
There's conclusions the writer comes to on certain ethical situations that I would do differently, and I don't. So I want to hear that critical feedback of
sure.
here's how I would respond. And
Okay.
then there's a couple of assignments that one's an optional. They can write a paper as the traditional way, but I also have, and I've had a couple of students do this. I have them create an ethics curriculum for the ministry that they serve in. And this has to be something that's not just, oh, here's a little thing I cobbled together. I want to
Yeah.
watch for the thinking that goes into it and the research that goes into it. So it's an extensive project. And then the final project, which is sort of their final exam, is them developing a personal ministerial ethic for themselves
Yeah.
and something that's suited for them. So it's practical things that hopefully will be suited um, for them. Um, I was
I
trying to think
do
of,
love it when instructors use their current ministry as the platform for these assignments, where they have to think through what they're currently serving in and creating their own personal ethic document, really thinking through all of that. It's
right.
such a help to them as they're already currently in ministry or ones they might potentially be in the future. Michael Raker is watching from West Alexandria, Ohio. Thanks for popping in, Michael.
Thanks. Yeah.
So I do love it when instructors make it really practical for the students as they're, in their ministries that they've been in for a while, or maybe they're just starting their journey and they're, thinking of taking on a church or jumping into ministry or something. It's super helpful to have those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Anne says, this is what I love about Veritas. Faculty assign practical work that students can immediately implement in their ministry. It's very helpful.
Yeah, yeah. I want a couple of the students I know that are on the mission field that have taken this class have been able to take the curriculum they developed that was
Mhm.
suited specifically for their context, their
Mhm.
ministry context, and have been able to not just create it, but actually use it in a very effective way, which makes me glad because it's not what I created, it's what they
Right.
created, and it's practical and it's helpful in where they are serving.
It's rewarding for you as the instructor to have created an assignment that is not only just checking the box, but it is
Yes,
helpful. It's rewarding to the student because ordinarily, my guess is having not taken a class, they wouldn't have gone through the exercise. They
right.
wouldn't have sat down and thought through all of those things. So it's rewarding on several levels to be able to have instructors who think and help and put it into their own context. Yeah, we
Awesome.
talk about that frequently when we have instructors on here about how
Good.
grateful we are for that. So
Yes.
we're going to probably finish up with one more question. How do you develop the leaders around you?
That's that's a really good question. And I think it's something that I've had the privilege to serve in a context where my leadership was volunteer
Mm.
and then sort of a hybrid now where there's paid leaders around me that I want to help grow and develop. And there's also not, and there's leaders they're leading. So I think in the whole context of things is trying to first of all identify who are potential leaders, and in doing that not making my full assessment, because sometimes the people we think, man, they'll never amount to anything.
Right.
um, and I avoid that because I remember people saying things to me over the years when I was young of,
Sure.
well, I think you should be doing that. What I'm doing now, I don't know that anyone, including myself, would have thought I would be a pastor. I knew I was called to ministry, and I thought more.
Really?
My dad was in evangelism, so I had a heart for evangelism,
Okay.
revivals, those kind of things. And yet here I am now, been in pastoral ministry for between 25 and 30, about 30 years. So
Wow.
I'm like, God, you have a sense of humor. But when I'm identifying, I try not to, try not to enforce my perception on them, but to see a willing heart, an humble heart, and somebody that's willing to grow. And then to just encourage and support them in the areas where God opens up opportunities, giving them opportunities. I think this follows Jesus's pattern.
Yeah.
Even when the disciples struggled to understand, follow, he was patient with them. And then once they began to develop, empowering them, delegating the task to them. And this is sort of a challenge for me that even when I give it to someone, I still sort of carry the weight of it.
Yeah.
And there reaches a point where I have to say, you know what? I'm letting loose of this. I'm
Yeah.
putting this on them. Yes, I'm still responsible. Yes, I'll follow up and have accountability, but it's not my burden to bear now. Let them go, let them make mistakes, and
Yeah.
then just give them. I think that I can equip, but the best development of leadership is actually doing it.
Yep. Yep.
And that's where it begins to process. And I love seeing somebody that you've seen move from maybe just a baby Christian to
Mhm.
start to grow, and with that growth comes service and ministry, and that leadership begins to develop. And yes, having the books, having the conferences, having those things that help them in their area, but just walking alongside of them through actual ministry, I
Yeah.
think is key to development.
Yeah, we talked about this when on Anne's Give and Take a couple of weeks ago, giving them a safe space to fail because
Yes.
we're going to, right? But if
Yes.
you're there and you're linking arms and we're going to take care of this together. Also, when you talked about that, when you said the word empowering, I thought that was such a great word because sometimes it's challenging as a leader to give up and make that other person totally successful in that role because we still have hands in to some degree. And it's really challenging to know when to cut that off, right? When is it totally your project and I'll have oversight and you'll report to me and all of that, but that I can let it not rule my brain, at
Right.
some point, it's on somebody else's plate. And I thought that's really good. And it's sometimes really challenging for some leaders, especially those of who can be more micromanagey, that's a really hard fine line.
Sure, sure. And just to be able to say, hey, I'm going to give you this. Well, I mean, think about, I know what it said to me when people gave me tasks and then just step back.
Yeah,
They believe in me.
that's right.
You can say all you want to, hey, I believe in you. You're going to do this. I believe you. But when somebody just says, okay, it's on you.
Yeah,
There is some pressure, but there's
that's
also
right.
that freedom of, hey, they got my back.
There's trust. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. Oh, that's good stuff. Boy, I know we could talk about that a long time because I think that's really interesting. And I know that those have benefited from your leadership, just like you were talking about. You have benefited from those that have been leaders in your life. Same for all of the rest of us. We're so grateful for the leaders that have been placed in our lives, and we're just hopeful to be able to give back in a certain way, in the same kind of way that
absolutely.
they did. So. Dr. Cloud, we're going to finish up here with just a kind of a plea to anybody who might be a prospective student, whether you're um, a doctoral prospective student or maybe you're jumping into undergrad. What would you say to somebody who is on the fence about jumping into classes?
I would say do it. Jump
Yeah,
in. It may seem overwhelming, the process and not knowing. I remember sometimes I've jumped in and like, wow, I'm not sure what to expect,
yeah.
but it is well worth. Um, I always use a great quote from Charles Spurgeon, and he says, and I'm paraphrasing somewhat here, but he says, God can blow through you as a ram's horn, but if God gives you the opportunity to become a silver trumpet,
Mm,
become a silver trumpet.
that's
And
good.
anything that can move me from being, I feel like I'm not even I'm sort of an old penny whistle or a reporter or something. But if God gives me the opportunity, so if you have the opportunity to equip yourself and enable yourself to serve God in a better way,
Yeah,
then and be more effective and to open up doors of opportunity, by all means, take that opportunity. Veritas is a great opportunity. Wonderful instructors. I'm not saying that because I am one, but I'm saying
sure.
the instructors that I know,
Yes.
it allows you to serve in your church, stay plugged in. As a pastor, I love that. And
Hmm.
still sharpen your sword. Move from a ram's horn to a silver trumpet.
That's good. That's really good. If you're out there listening and you are the Rams horn, jump in, give us a call. Our team is eager. We count it a great privilege. I say this regularly because it is just so true. We count it a great privilege to come alongside your spiritual journey. If Veritas becomes part of your journey, if God has called you to classes or to sharpen your skills, we would love to be part of that. It is a great honor for us. So be sure to give us a call. Let us know if there's something we can help. Also, don't forget that we have TMI, Truth Matters Institute at .vbc.edu. It's free resources. If somebody is out there looking for Bible topics or personal enrichment, check out tmi.vbc.edu for free resources. You'll find some good stuff over there. Dr. Cloud, thanks so much for joining us today.
My privilege. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, we were glad to have you. Thanks for carving out the time. And to those of you in the Veritas community, we are so grateful you tuned in. Be sure to catch us next Monday, same time. We'll see you next time.